This slideshow wasn't built by me. In fact, it was generated by an AI agent fed only a company's HubSpot, Amplitude, and Stripe data and told to figure out exactly which channels are actually driving revenue, not just signups. Today, I'm going to show you how to use Querri to do the same thing for your business. Hey, this is Gabe at Querri, and today we're going to be using Querri to see which channels actually drive revenue and not just signups. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and connect our data to Querri for it to analyze. So for this hypothetical company, we're going to say that it's a B2B and it's using HubSpot, Amplitude, and Stripe. So we're going to go ahead and upload our HubSpot campaigns, contacts, our Stripe customers, refunds, and charges, as well as our user data from Amplitude. And then we're going to create a project. One interesting thing is that Querri uses load as basically a command within its prompt, right? And then it can take any data that you've previously uploaded as just a file name, and it can add it to any project, so long as, of course, you have permission to access that file. So here we go. Querri already pretty quickly just synthesized all this data into these nice charts and created a couple insights for us to look at, right? And it's interesting. We can go through and look at it, but one problem is that we have a bunch of data that's kind of just scattered around and not so useful in its current form, right? We have HubSpot contacts, but then we have our Stripe customers, and who knows if this is going to be the same for any given business, right? And this kind of presents a problem because how do we know which leads are ending up in revenue if they're not part of the same account? So for this data set, we actually do have these account IDs, right? And so we're going to be using that to match. But in the real world, your data might be messy. And oh, here we go. Already an account is missing an account ID, right? And so to deal with that, we're going to be matching first based off of account IDs and second based off of email addresses and seeing basically just among all these different accounts, can Querri go ahead and figure out which businesses are, which people belong to which businesses. And then from there, we can generate more interesting reports, right? So we're going to go ahead and tell it, match HubSpot contacts to Amplitude users and Stripe customers. That's going to be the first step. It's going to create an idea of a person, right? And then from there, we're going to say join on account ID first, then on normalized email as a fallback. And finally, we're going to roll individual contacts and users up to the account they belong to, because ultimately we're doing a business level analysis and we're trying to see where we're getting our revenue from. Okay, now Querri has generated its report. It has consolidated users into who's actually using our platform, right? And more importantly, it's figured out the actual companies behind it, right? Here we go. Let's see. 732 account unified identity resolutions complete. So we have a certain amount of HubSpot contacts, Stripe customers, Amplitude users, and we've rolled them all into an account level, right? And it's just figured out exactly how to do all this without us going ahead and creating some kind of parsing pipeline, right? So this has already saved a lot of time, but the data right now, it's still kind of hard to read, right? So the next use that we're going to use Querri for is we're going to try to figure out exactly which campaigns themselves are, like we're going to basically further group these different companies. So we're going to say map HubSpot original traffic sources and campaigns into our channel taxonomy. And this is basically up to whatever your company normally uses, right? So here, Querri is just going to kind of choose. But normally, let's say you do a lot of ad-based advertising, like literally like online ads, well, in that case, maybe your taxonomy would consist of the different social media platforms you put it on. But if you do billboards, right, and you do conferences, and then you also have online ads, well, then maybe that's what your taxonomy is going to look like. So this is very business dependent. But if you don't have an idea, you can just ask it to go ahead and just map it into whatever it chooses, right? And then we're going to further disaggregate the data a little bit by defining activation as an account completing a core action, again, up to whatever your app or whatever is defines, right? Like what exactly does it mean to you for a customer to have activated their account? Within 14 days of sign up and realized revenue. So anyway, explaining this is basically, like differentiating the customers that just sign up and the customers that are actually using the platform. Finally, we're going to define realized revenue as captured charges minus refunds. And that's why we brought the Stripe refunds data into this. Go ahead and compare each account within 90 days of signup. Okay, so Querri went ahead and did what we told it. It conglomerated basically all of our data. So here we can see kind of like where the basically where the accounts are coming from, right? We're seeing the the activations, right, per account. We can see the refunds per account. It's glad there's not so many, right? Um, and then, we have some more time stuff, and figuring out kind of what is going on in this 90-day time period, right? First core action, etc. Uh, and then it also has generated some charts for us. So we can see um, exactly which accounts are activating and then which of them are paying. So we see that almost everyone is ending up activating their account, but maybe not all of them are paying. Um, but one issue we have, another one, let's see, average realized revenue per account by channel, right? And so these are some very interesting and very useful graphs. I mean, here we can already see that, organic search is actually surprisingly pretty good, and paid social, maybe not so much. But there is a little bit of a problem with this data, and that is that it might not be categorized very well because we're just grouping by channel, but as we can see already up here, right? Like we have blue metric listed a ton of times. Well, turns out they're coming from Bing ads, they're coming from Meta, right? And that's because people are going to be interacting with it on multiple platforms. So one thing that we're going to want to do is attribute each account to its first touch channel. This is just the standard way of figuring out, where did they hear about us first? That's the most important part. So now that we got our response back, what we can see here is I actually assumed that Querri wouldn't have, conglomerated it based off of first touch channels, right? I thought that maybe there was some double counting going on, but actually no, it seems that this really truly is the paying rates depending on the first touch amount. And furthermore, this right here shows us the revenue being collected from every first channel. So this truly is the most representative graph, and it tells us exactly what we need to know. It tells us that offline organic search and direct channels are pulling in a lot. Of course, other campaigns is pulling a lot, but this is kind of harder to analyze, right? But yeah, I mean, we're seeing that paid search, paid social, not super useful. Email, referral, kind of useful, right? And then, that combined with our, paying rate, it seems that, maybe referrals don't always I mean, maybe on overall they're not paying so much, but clearly, when you get someone by referral, it seems to work out very well, right? As soon as they activate, they're basically going to become a paying customer. Very cool. So now that we have all that data, you're working for the company, you understand the data, you know exactly what you want to what insights you want to have based off of this stuff, right? But what if you want to present it to someone, right? Say that's an investor or maybe just your boss, and you want to tell them exactly what what's going on, right? Well, let's just go ahead and ask Querri to make us a presentation, and it will go right ahead and process that data and put it in a very pretty output that we can show to someone that's not so data inclined. So there we go. Querri went ahead and it generated um, a presentation for us, a couple notes, but let's just go ahead and jump into the presentation, right? So here we go. It's going to be analyzing the accounts. It tells us the keynotes here. We go into it. It talks about the methodology that we used, right? Like we were looking at the first touch channels. We're talking about activations, which are a very important feature, right? I mean, just we're not looking at necessarily the garbage signups and what kind of revenue we're generating, right? And it even mentions our little refund stuff, which is, these little things matter, right? So we got some broad numbers, very high activation rate, right? Apparently, there's not too many garbage signups. Um, Here's our chart that we were looking at earlier, which again, it was able to realize that it's doing first touch, right? And so we're not seeing overlapping data. And yeah, I mean, we see a lot of this stuff, but one question is how much does it matter? Because how many accounts are there, right? And let's see if it answers that. Uh, Here we go. Here we go. Revenue per account, right? So this is super important, right? Like referrals are apparently pulling in a good amount, but these other campaigns, these offline events, they're pulling in a lot per account, right? So even if here we go, organic search pulling in a ton of accounts, but not necessarily so highly paid versus other campaigns, they're getting us huge customers, right? Um, we have our activation rate. We're seeing that very high activation across the board, but if we're looking at our paying rate, right, which channels are generating the highest amounts of accounts? Again, referrals, right? Like lots of people end up actually becoming real customers through that. Okay, here we go. Average revenue per account. Yeah, so paid social, paid search, sales slash CRM created. These avenues basically are generating not too many customers, and the customers that do end up converting don't end up um, paying very much. So let's see. Organic search, yeah, we can see a conversion rate, right? Again, paid social, like not pulling in very much, right? Um, so we can see some recommendations. Of course, you can generate your own based off of it, but if you're in a hurry, it will tell you what what it recommends. And yeah, yeah. So I like Querri because it can take, as you saw, we had just extremely messy data from multiple different platforms, and just through a couple of guided questions, we were able to get Querri to generate a very nice looking presentation for us. And another really good thing about it is that, it's meant for businesses, right? And so it's already thinking about things like adding in first touch attribution, because that's just something that, that's the industry standard, right? And it's considering that before you've even thought of it. And so normally the output is going to be very high quality. The data scrubbing is very good. It can figure out what's going on. It can look at trends across huge amounts of data, right? And most importantly, it can integrate with all the existing platforms, right? Like you don't actually have to upload HubSpot data like I was showing here. In reality, you would have just connected to HubSpot, and then Querri is just going to be able to pull from that. So that's Querri, and that's how we figure out channels that are driving revenue from a bunch of messy data from all of our platforms. What else are you going to do with Querri?